schools primarily, or you see it in the for-profit schools participate, like the ITT universities?
I guess I wish I could answer the question. Having 4 kids that have gone through schools, I know of no such thing as a nonprofit school.
Jim? When you're close to a college, you're actually going to be paying more per hour for the people. When you take a rural community, you build the training there, your rates drop. So when you do go close to college, you're still going to be, your rates are going to be higher than they are in true rural America.
So the more training that you do as opposed to a school, the lower the rates are.
Yeah, if I'm a college student, I'm going to expect to get paid more than I would if my community's training.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions?
Several.
Oh,
Yeah.
Start here.
Yeah, an awful lot of your quality and speed to effective delivery depends on experience. And I don't think we've got a lot of offshore. Are you going to get that in, say, Southeast Ohio? There are no real companies who develop that experience base versus, say, Eastern Europe, where there's a lot of development going on, and they've got that sort of interaction that's gone on to build that experience base. It seems to me you're starting from a lot lower base with rural outsourcing.
That's an interesting supposition. Okay, what we find, at least in our demographics, is in particular technologies, the average years of experience in the technology and the people that we have engaged, say years. The kind of stuff that we have is everything from basic manufacturing experience. So people that have worked in companies like Toyota and others who have decided to either A, retire, or B, have moved because one of 2 things. Their spouse has moved, and they've gone along with them. So I can probably say you won't find as much density of high-skilled individuals in a particular rural setting. I think that's very true if you're going to compare, for example, New York skill sets with East Liverpool skill sets. Well, I wouldn't necessarily say that you can't find depth of training in those areas where, in fact, you have skills in rural America. Huh?
Yeah, and we're looking really for the 5 to 8 year veteran to really source that East Liverpool location. And those are the folks that will bring these trainees up to speed. Very similar to an India-based model where they're using freshers. Difference is we're going through a 1-year certification training program for our freshers as opposed to running them through like a real quick boot camp and throwing them into a development environment. So we have the 5 to 8 year veterans that are really doing that mentoring and taking them from the training into the delivery on the people.
5 to 8 year veterans of, say, testing, quality assurance, or 5 to 8 years of experience in doing, job development?
Both. QA, we're doing a QA and testing engagement right now. We've staffed it with 5 to 8 years and augmented that with the trainees out of the training center, and then we do the same with the development. Doesn't matter if it's Java, .NET, database, matter. The technology isn't really what we're having issues with. We're finding technology in rural America to put into that center. People would rather, in that location, would rather work in East Liverpool than make the commute into a Pittsburgh, for example. They're willing to work at lower rates to do that and bring that experience to the table. We're also putting them in leadership roles, which they wouldn't get elsewhere. So it's a career path for them that wasn't available prior to setting up that facility.
Yeah, back of the room.
When you talk about the intangible benefits, how much interest are you getting out of companies that are just tired of being hammered, their image is being hammered for sending workers overseas? And how much of your business is new organic people looking to alternative labor forces versus people trying to bring jobs back into the U.S.? And as a follow-up on that, how much either stimulus money or money from the potential jobs bills is being thrown around about this right now?
Let me take a shot. Yep. I mean, initially, I would kind of divide my answer up into 3 main quadrants for you is in one section, we deal with state and local government quite a bit. So to your point, that work has to be done here in the U.S. They're not going to even consider, going over. So that's one component of the business that we're driving to East with. So that was somewhat of a captive base of work, and it has to stay here within the boundaries of Ohio. Okay? So we can set that off to the side. The second one is commercial prospects that have either already gone to India and for one reason or another, some of them because of the increasing labor rates in India. You can see that the cost keeps going up year over year. Some of them have had delivery issues, and resolving those delivery issues has just taken too much management attention, and it's distracting their focus, and they'd like to bring that work back. So we're seeing about 40% in that space, and then the remainder are companies that need to lower their price points. They haven't been willing to go offshore, and now that they have a rural option, they're engaging that rural option. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, that answers the percentages of how the market's breaking up, but, it's part of your pitch.
Yeah, the other side, are you talking
The
incentives?
soft and fuzzy stuff,
Well, there's the other side, which is really talking about incentives associated with that. I'd like to say, in Don's point, there's probably a fourth category, and I'm not exactly sure whether what its percentage is, but there is a Buy American
Yeah.
bent. I mean, it's out there. I can't say that it's a big item that people will come to us and say, our management has decided to move this stuff here, or they decided to keep it here. Would you like to bid on this work? So there is a percentage of that there. As far as incentives, there are a number of incentives out there. There's a large broadband implementation incentive that's potentially out there. And in reality, if you're tied to it in one way, shape, or form, there's an initiative in Indiana, in Kentucky. It's called Wired 65. It's stimulus money focused primarily to developing that I-65 corridor. So if you go from Indianapolis down to Nashville, you will find parts of that where there is no broadband. And what the state is looking for are firms that are willing to invest in that part of the country, rural America. I mean, it's no different than Toyota picking a Georgetown location to put a plant in. We would pick something in Elizabethtown, as an example. Along the corridor, the state's willing to fund a portion of that, either in the sense of training credits and or tax abatements. So yeah, there is money available out there, and some of it is definite stimulus money.
As a follow-up to that, you were just talking about broadband. How difficult is it to start a new center, given that only 64% of the country is currently wired?
Well,
And you're talking about most of the country where it isn't wired is the places where you're trying to put centers.
Obviously, there's a lag in starting something where you're on the leading edge of an implementation. So relative to Wired 65, I mean, your options are a little bit limited. That doesn't mean that you can't put a rural development center in large portions. It's kind of interesting that, you have communities that are wired or nearly wired into the broadband structure where you can start to develop and implement. And it's a timing issue. If you want to do it now, you're going to wait a while before you're fully effective. Frankly, there's enough opportunity at this particular point to find rural areas that are within that information broadband highway. Link into them now, and then grow as that moves. But are we actively engaged in the political discourse associated with moving it? Absolutely. I mean, we're talking tens of millions of people. I mean, you go to places like Bozeman, Montana. I have a young lady there that's an outstanding QA person. Now, Bozeman happens to be wired. Small community, beautiful place to live. We definitely are proponents of that movement.